If you notice the scent of cigars in the Philippine jungle, or see the glow of embers near a giant tree, or maybe you feel the eyes of an 8-foot beast upon you while you sleep, it might just be the Kapre. What is perhaps the simplest creature in Philippine mythology turns out to have a very complicated past. In this episode, we will attempt to peel away the layers that comprise the origin, history, and evolution of the Kapre.
The Kapre has been described as a giant, dark-skinned, bad teeth, hangs out at trees and loves to smoke cigars. Sounds like one of my uncles.
Kapre is really interesting to me because it's almost, the experiences with the Kapres are almost, and the stories are almost the same. Like you smell the tobacco and there's something huge outside your window on the trees.
A nature spirit. It just sits in a tree and smokes a cigar and doesn't really pay attention to you except it looks really evil. That's about it. I've never heard of a Kapre harming anyone. It just likes to watch.
Some residents from Mambucal, this is the place, told us, whatever you do, go ahead and do whatever you need to do. But in the big circle right next to the entrance, there's a bend over there. Don't pass there because there's a black Kapre in there, and they're bad. That's the first time I had heard that there were the white Kapres who just smoked in the trees and let things be, and the black Kapre that would actually hurt you.
Perhaps the most famous Kapre is Mr. Brown, rumored to live in the 100-year-old balete tree near the front entrance of Malacañang Palace. In 2011, President Aquino even gave the tree heritage status. Or maybe you've heard the tales of how Emilio Aguinaldo, a Filipino revolutionary and former president, had a Kapre who protected him. Rumors suggest that the Kapre was in fact David Fagan, an African-American soldier who defected to the Filipino Revolutionary Army led by Aguinaldo. Unconfirmed reports suggest that Fagan was decapitated by hunters, but others believe he lived out his days on the Aguinaldo estate in Cavite and would be seen wandering the grounds at night.
I remember from our first interview that I never knew exactly what a Kapre did. It was just this huge creature that was up on the tree smoking. I've read after that it was based on the Indian word kafir, or is it South African?
One puzzling aspect of the Kapre is where the name came from. It is generally believed that it came from the Islamic term kafir, meaning non-believer or infidel. But exactly how and why this happened is unknown, especially since the Islamic population of the Philippines didn't use the term. I decided to go back to the beginning and trace exactly how the Kapre got its name. The word kafir comes from a pre-Islamic Arabic term meaning to cover seeds with earth or soil. In the Quran, it meant the denial of truth. Muslim historians in South Asia later used the term kafir for Hindus, Buddhists, and Sikhs. By the 15th century, the word kafir was used by Muslims in Africa to refer to the non-Muslim African slaves sold to European and Asian merchants. Meanwhile, major changes were happening in the Philippines. In episode 1, we talked about the Hindu and Buddhist influences in the region. But by 1390, Muslim traders had spread Islam through much of Southeast Asia, including the southern Philippines. Later, in 1565, the Spanish began setting up colonies and converting the native populations to Christianity. During this time, the Spanish brought in slaves through Portuguese merchants. In historical documents, the slaves brought through Acapulco to Manila were referred to as Negroes, while the slaves brought from East Africa through India and Malaysia were referred to as both Negroes and Kapres, borrowed from the Muslim term kafir. By the mid-17th century, many of these slaves were revolting. This is what sparked a theory that the Kapre was an invention of the Spanish to stop natives from assisting Negro slaves when they escaped. But there is no historical evidence to prove this. In fact, use of the word and foreign slavery began to steadily decline from 1640 to 1820. It would be another 100 years until the word Kapre was used to describe the creature. But before we get to that, let's take a look at the origins of the Kapre's physicality. Last episode, we talked about the animist beliefs of the pre-Spanish Philippines and how they believed in good and harmful spirits. Contrary to popular belief, evidence shows that they also believed that some of these spirits could appear in physical form. Early reports on folk beliefs of Filipino tribes have several accounts of various giant black spirits. But it was the Ilocano Pugot that smoked cigars in a tree before the Kapre took ownership of those characteristics. So how did the term Kapre get applied? Spanish literature written in the Philippines at the time show that the word Kapre had evolved into a term describing an uncivilized or uncouth behavior. This descriptive word became the general term for the Pugot and any similar creature. Their phonological alteration pronounced it Kapre. The early 20th century was also the first time that the creature was reported to be smoking cigars and pipes. Tobacco was introduced to the Philippines in the late 16th century by the Spanish. But by 1782, a government monopoly turned tobacco into a strictly controlled crop on Luzon and Mindanao. Farmers were given quotas to reach and made very little profit, while corruption and bribery enriched government agents. The world-famous Manila cigar was a luxury reserved for the upper class. However, in 1882, the monopoly was abolished and tobacco became available to anyone who could grow or buy it. In the Ilocos region, families would share foot-long cigars. It's only natural that the Kapre would also indulge in this leisurely activity. Then, in 1940, the Abacada alphabet was officially adopted. The alphabet did not contain the letter C, which saw the spelling of Kapre changed. Around the same time, comic artists would complete the physical transformation into what we know today. They took artistic license with the folklore and gave life to the imagination of storytellers. Recently, there has been a resurgence in Philippine comics, and I think we can expect the evolution of the Kapre to continue.
The Kapre in Trece has appeared, I think, once or twice. I've just portrayed it as one of those knowledgeable contacts of Trece. As far as I'm concerned, the Kapres have been around, even before the Spanish came here, so they know a lot about the land. I can't talk much about it, but there is a story that I've been meaning to do specifically for the Kapre, and I haven't gotten to that bit.
It's interesting to see how modern artists interpret the Kapre. In the past, supernatural beliefs were used to ease psychological burdens. Lately, stories have been using these cultural constructs as a societal mirror, exposing the true monsters. Yvette Tan's short story Kulog, where an unhappy girl befriends a young Kapre, is a perfect example.
He sees this child growing more and more miserable every day. He sees how she's being treated at home, how her mother won't stand up for her. And then one time it goes too far. One time he can't stand it anymore. So he tries to save her. And then everyone, by trying to save her, he shows himself to the neighborhood, who until then thought that the house this family lived in was haunted. They didn't know that it was the Kapre just trying to kick everyone out. So everyone sees the Kapre, they automatically think this monster's harming the child. So they hurt the Kapre instead of going for the actual monster, which is her father.
Even with modern interpretations, the Kapre is still used to explain mysterious events.
The first time the psychic made a circuit of the house and she went into my room and said, "Oh, who lives here? Who stays here?" "Oh, it's my nephew." "Because there's somebody here. There's a creature here who has been trying to get your attention for quite some time." And she went into a trance. Afterwards, my aunt showed me the automatic writing that she did. She went in trance and communicated with the Kapre, and it revealed a lot of things to her. I don't know if it's true because she can't really read the handwriting, but it says, here are some of the facts about the Kapre. It says, his name is Simon. He's wanted to live with us for quite some time. If we deign to let him live with us, he'll protect the house. He'll be the house's guardian spirit.
The Kapre has deep animist roots that predates foreign influence, and only recently underwent the physical transformation into what it is today. Smoking, at the end of the tobacco monopoly, was used as a regional identifier. The Pagote and similar creatures were unified under a single name, while the creativity of comic artists drastically changed its appearance. Its name stems from a pre-Islamic term meaning to cover with soil. It then showed up in the Quran. Later, it was used by Islamic scholars to describe non-Muslims. Borrowed by the Spanish, it described some of the slaves brought by the Portuguese, where it then evolved into a term to describe a barbaric or uncivilized behavior. This descriptive word was applied to the creature. Their phonological alterations saw that Kapre was pronounced Kapre. Finally, the adoption of the Abacada alphabet in 1940 saw the word spelled with a K instead of a C. Even though much of the Kapre's evolution is due to foreign influence, it's important to remember that its origin and ownership is truly and uniquely Filipino.
I think because of colonialism, of how the Spanish made us think that we were less than we actually were, and how the Americans may or may not have reinforced that consciously or unconsciously, we Filipinos tend to think of anything local, anything of themselves as automatically inferior, and we need a white person to say otherwise. So it's changing now. Now people are learning to love the Philippines on its own terms. It's a slow process, but it's gaining traction. But until recently, it was always white person says it doesn't exist, therefore it doesn't, because they should know better.
And the mere fact that I'm talking English this way goes to show how much of an influence other culture has been on us. I think it's important to see where you came from, just so that you can figure out whether you want to continue that or to depart from it.
I think more and more every day we are coming to terms with the deeper parts of our being colonized. From the very beginning, we are Filipinos, we're proud to be Filipinos, but we still go and have McDonald's type of hamburgers, even if we do go to Jollibee. But yes, in terms of our songs, in terms of our poetry, etc., I think that the Filipinos embracing is going back a lot more and trying to find things that are a lot more intrinsic, is the word, I don't know, that is indelibly Filipino, and you cannot ignore the animistic side of the Pinoy. You just can't.